Hello and welcome everybody to a brand new episode here on the channel of r/ProRevenge. Boy oh boy do I have one crazy long story for you cool cats today. Before we get into the nitty-gritty with the details, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button as well as make sure you got notifications turned on, that way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. So without further ado, I present to you, from 14 days ago by Zarina Blue, Shady Landlord loses his fancy truck, and just about everything else too. And yeah, I know I added a word, or rather, a number to that title, but it was just too good to pass up. Story time! This is gonna be a very long one, but considering I ruined this guy's life, the location, the deep south, just shy of 2008. My ex-husband and I have always gotten along very well, and we have, at the time of this story, a 7-year-old daughter. We had always lived near each other for convenience sake, and have on occasion even lived in the same house after divorcing. So I was thrilled when the people across the street from him sold their place, and apparently it was going to be for rent. I had known the folks across the street, nice people, and had even been in the house a time or two. So when I showed up with my other half to look the place over, I kinda knew what we would be getting. The landlord was working on the house when we pulled up. We had gone out to eat before, and so I know he was unaware he was talking to someone who knew the people who had lived there and been in the house. His big old dually was in the driveway with his company name stenciled on it. He meets us in the garage and immediately starts lying. He told me this was his family home and he was just fixing it up, but there were a lot of memories there and his kids had grown up in that house. I realized he was adding value. I kept my mouth shut because I was right across the street from my ex-husband, and it was literally the bus stop for the school for my daughter. He continued to lie and I kinda tuned him out. The place was a little worse for wear. Dirty, gross carpet, chipped paint. I had made a comment on the broken light switch, and he told me he was having a cleaning crew come through and clean the place up and have everything painted and get the carpet redone. The price was a little high, but once again, I really wanted it, and it wasn't nightmare high. So just $200 over what I was expecting. I had a small Australian Shepherd, so first month's rent, last month's rent, and pet deposit, $12.50 for each one. Ouch. About 2 weeks later, it was move-in day. I should have known something was up when the key was left in a combo box on the door. We had paid through a service, so he had the money, and we had the key. And a mess. He had done literally nothing except replace a set of rotted outdoor steps that he probably had to for liability purposes. We dragged out the digital camera and started taking pictures. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with partial basement. We took over 1,100 pictures. Here are some highlights. Ketchup smeared on the kitchen walls and floor. Nothing in there had been cleaned. The fridge was awful. Had what smelled like hair gel rubbed into the dining room and outside the front bathroom door. Fireplace literally had soot covering all of it and up to the ceiling. The reason for all the non-working lights became apparent at that point. He kept it dim for showings. Garage full of trash. Partial basement, which we hadn't seen because that's where he had a big saw set up, and it wasn't really a selling point for us. Mold. All the mold. This is when I call him up and basically said, "What the hell?" He replied that money and keys had already exchanged hands and that if I had a problem, I needed to put in a maintenance request. He said, "I don't remember it being that bad. Sounds like you made a mess moving in." Okay, so now I knew exactly how crappy of a person I'm dealing with. Put in a maintenance request about the mold, went out and bought all the bleach, other cleaning supplies, and carpet cleaner. I'm a military brat who lived in base housing, and I know how to clean, so we got to work. It took 2 days of 4 adults. My ex and a friend came over to help to get the place passable. We even changed out the blinds. During this, landlord comes over to look at the mold, and I kid you not, grabs a roll of my paper towels and my bleach spray and starts wiping the mold off the walls. He had just walked into the garage, grabbed some cleaning stuff I had down in the garage, and I found him about halfway through his cleaning job. That's all he did. Fast forward 3 months, and it's time for an inspection. Okay, he tells me he'll be there tomorrow at 8 a.m. He shows up at 6:30 p.m., demands to be let in. I let him in and he starts taking pictures of dishes in the sink, Dinner was still on the table, and lecturing me about cleaning up when I cook. So in front of him, I pulled out my digital camera and took one of him taking a picture of the dishes for dinner with dinner still on the table and a time date stamp. What an ass. He wanted to go through drawers in my bedroom. I laughed at him. Didn't hear from him again until move-out time. If you thought I was staying there longer than a year, then you're crazier than I was when I rented the place. He sent me a move-out checklist, professional steam cleaning and white glove clean of the entire house. New pine straws for landscaping. All rooms needed to be repainted wheat. When we moved in, the bathroom was literally turquoise. So we got to work, steam cleaned, white glove cleaned, etc., then took another 1,000 pictures. He walks in and is pissed. He even ran a white rag on top of the ceiling fan. He snatched the keys out of my hand and told me to expect to hear from him in 10 days about the deposit. That doesn't sound good. 2 weeks later, I get a bill for $37.50. More professional steam cleaning, HVAC cleanout, and apparently we didn't use the right brand of wheat. Oh yes we did. 2 things I haven't disclosed. I have a bad habit of recording bad people, or just a CYA. And my mom's a landlord in the next state. She's the good kind who was never able to make money at it. If people told her that they couldn't afford to pay because they needed money to feed their children, my mom usually gave them money. So glad she got out. But my mom was very familiar with the laws and had looked a few things up about my landlord. So I grabbed my little recorder and I called him. He owns a real estate business, his side is rental stuff, and his wife and grown daughters bought and sold houses. His oldest daughter picks up and transfers me to him. It gets ugly fast, and he tells me that I must have let my Australian Shepherd pee in the vent grates. And the way I take care of my daughter would be very interesting to CPS. He can help me work out a payment plan, but pretty soon, as we would be getting into collections territory. At one point, he actually says that all tenants are liars. Nice. About 20 minutes of being threatened. I call my mom back. TBH, I am pretty damn shook up at this point. CPS for what? So my mom tells me to pretend like I'm playing along and ask for an itemized receipt. Tell him your mom is going to cover it and tell him your mom needs it before turning over the money. I had one 10 minutes after I asked. On my end, the professional steam cleaner was a friend of mine who had a business and gave me a discount. HVAC was a scam. The company he listed belonged to his brother-in-law, was defunct and out of another state. Since I had a before, after, and his new listing pictures, I knew he hadn't hired anyone to do HVAC cleaning. The vents were painted to the wall, in all the pics. We saved our paint receipts, and I actually had pics of us painting. You can see the right brand and color clear as day. I called his business and told his daughter that I would be taking him to court. She obviously was unaware of what a shit father she had, because when I told her that no one threatens my little girl, she didn't know what I was talking about. So I put her on speakerphone and played a recording of her dad threatening to have CPS come visit if I didn't pay up, and she made it most of the way through before asking me to turn it off. Then she put me on hold to get her mom, his wife. She tried to reason with me, and I backed up the tape to the part where he talks about what happens to the kids in the foster system and played it. She told me they would get back to me, and they actually did. The mom and eldest called me on speakerphone and apologized. They told me how the business was divided and how they normally don't deal with the rental stuff. I told him it was fine, but I'm still taking him to court. Time for court. We ended up in arbitration. I showed up with 2 laptops for before and after, proof of his fake HVAC crap, a stack of literal receipts, him committing a crime by threatening to falsely call CPS, and a pretty good working knowledge of renter law in that state. At one point, the arbitrator asked me if I was a paralegal. He had pictures of dirty dishes and stories about how I lived like a pig. I pulled up the pic of the same sink of dishes, with dinner in the foreground, time and date stamped. The arbitrator actually asked, "Did you expect her to do the dishes before she ate dinner?" Even the woman taking notes from the arbitrator was grossed out when I showed them the ketchup and basement mold pics. Did you know that you can get 3 times what you ask for in a rental dispute, depending on your state? Yeah, you can. I did. The arbitrator used the word appalling when describing the landlord's behavior. When I went out in the hallway afterwards, there was a young couple there asking the clerk if the landlord was available yet. Apparently, they were waiting their turn at arbitration. I asked them if their case was HVAC related, and sure enough it was. I pulled out all the paperwork I had about it and handed it to them with my number. Actually got several calls from his other tenants. He had even been running that scam a while when these kids I had handed the paper over and looked up every house on the landlord's website and went door to door warning them. Smart. I hadn't thought of that. Meanwhile, my mother was filing a complaint with everyone she could think of because he had this business listed as a suite, which turns out to be a P.O. box. Huge no-no. Your business must be in a location that can be served by the courts. A year later, I saw a truck with his logo drive past, but it wasn't the dually. It was an older F-150. That's when I looked him up in the county clerk's records. Well, first, it seems he got divorced and cleaned out. The house, big truck, everything went to her. Then she sued him for the business. He got to keep the name, and she took everything else. I looked up the realty website using her maiden name to search. Her and the eldest daughter were using her maiden name and had a whole new webpage set up. Also, my mom noticed that her complaint was being addressed and had his license suspended and a huge fine to get reinstated. My mom kept an eye on the records and home deeds in the area, and all but 2 of his properties were sold at auction. So let's sum up. He had to pay me 3 times what I asked for, lost his big money-making scam, lost his wife, lost his houses, lost his truck, and lost his license for a while. No regrets. Well, there you have it, folks. The end of today's ProRevenge. If you like this story, be sure to leave a like on the video, as well as make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you could stay up to date with all future videos. As always, my name's Ryan, the voice behind Reddit Voice, the official host here on the channel, and I look forward to seeing you guys in tomorrow's story, because we upload just about every single day.